Call this meeting, or come out of recess, is what we're doing, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll move that we come out of recess.
Have a second on that?
I guess I'll second it. You weren't really in a meeting, but that's okay.
We kind of left it, we come out of recess to come back in here. Okay, got a second on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Now we need to call this meeting to order where we are with our agenda. Need a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's say pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have public comment up next, but it's about, as JD, we talked about to go in at 6:10, we're going to a public hearing for this 5-year road plan, so wherever we are, we'll stop and come back to that. So there's a public comment right now. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, Mace Henson, 106 West Thomas, Shenandoah, Iowa. I kind of hesitant to come out tonight because I'm not quite sure that it's time to make any statements regarding the solar ordinances, but I think it's just the general consensus or the general feeling in the rest of the county that the limitations, the expectations that you have in building these ordinances and some of the excessive demands that you have are giving the appearance throughout the state that Page County is closed for business. And unfortunately, that's a bad thing, because right now we have 3 of the hardest working mayors that we've ever had in Page County. Craig and Roger and Calvin worked their tails off to make and build the communities and make their communities better. And yet they watch you guys continually step backwards when you build these excessive limitations into the ordinances. And I'm specifically talking about 2 things that were mentioned already in your solar ordinances. Number 1 is the noise restraint with the barriers and the noise levels being tested and everything else like this. Incredibly excessive, because the inverter buildings that are going to be on place for solar are cooled by ECM blower motors, which are DC driven, which means that they're ultra quiet. You could not hear one of these fan blowers running if it was sitting in your house. Number 2 is the feeder line depths that you guys are building into this. Again, excessive, 10 feet for feeder lines that are going to be in an area that's not even going to be used throughout the use of the solar farm. Absolutely makes no sense in the world why you would build those 2 excessive limitations unless you're saying, we don't want solar. And when you say we don't want solar, then you're saying to this gentleman back behind me from Mid-American, we don't want Mid-American to do any business in Page County. And so there's a lot of citizens that are starting to get really upset that the ordinances and the excessive limitations and the expectations that you guys are building into some of these recent ordinances are just anti-everything. And so I'm here to implore and ask you, when you're sitting and you're looking at these suggested ordinances, maybe you're bringing them in from Madison County or Glenwood or wherever you're looking at these suggestions, look at those and say, what is going to say Page County is open for business, instead of saying we're closed for business. So I ask you, take a serious look when you're building these ordinances and say, are we open for business, or are we just shutting it down? Because we've got 3 mayors in this county that are going to fight you tooth and nail if you continue to put a sign up that says we are closed for business. So thank you.
Thank you. I heard from any of the mayors on this issue there. So anybody else? What time is it?
6:05.
6:05, we got a little more time. Anybody else got a comment? Yeah.
My name's Cindy Van Fossen, and since May stood up and said that the people of Page County think that the ordinances you guys are looking at are too restrictive. I just want to point out that he's not speaking for every citizen in Page County, because I appreciate that we are protecting everybody's rights. I don't own a farm, but I had grandparents that owned farms, and I had a father that sold farm equipment, so I understand the importance of agriculture and the importance of the farming community here. And so I think it's important that we protect everybody's rights, and that includes the neighbor of anything, any green energy project that we're gonna do, any of them. It doesn't matter which one. I think we need to protect neighbors as well as owners. So I just wanted to point out, because he said everybody, and it looks like, no, it's not everybody. It's maybe some of the people he talked to, I don't know. But anyway, not everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One more time. Have a few more minutes. Anybody else have a comment? If not, we can jump into JD's section anyway.
Good evening, J.D. King, Page County Engineer. Windy day in Page County, but yesterday was a better day before the deck. So we'll talk about the engineer's update first. Got sent out Tuesday afternoon. We're blading, we're hauling rock. The whole crew is working on beaver dams, and I saw some today that they hadn't got yet. Brush crew's working on Teak Avenue north of the Rattleville pit. We're gonna start pipe work pretty soon. South of Coin on H Avenue, stretch of road's been closed for a couple of years. Been cutting shoulders on some other roads not associated with the rock call. L Avenue, 180th, 290th, 270th. And we had some flagger training that our guys went to up at Atlantic. Newer guys, we didn't take 6, there was some guys short today, but we make an effort to get our new guys to training. Moving to the shop, and this is of Monday, the information. I was waiting on the cat guy to work on our mower tractor. He got a no start problem. He fixed one thing and then something else came up. Putting on a couple of conveyors for our edge rut work. 42 is in for service this week, and they're supposed to be pulling off the snow equipment. They told me the spray rig was gonna be operational this week. The spray rig guy was gone today, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. And he won't be spraying with the wind. We placed the deck yesterday at the bridge on 190th, near what we looked at this afternoon. We're investigating that. It's on the agenda here, we'll get to it. I got federal aid agreement on the agenda, public hearing on the agenda, utility permit on the agenda. We can probably get that utility permit, and this is IMO sending a bunch of utility permits. They're plowing fiber around College Springs. Yep. We've had some success running the rock to the other side of the road where they're gonna plow, and then run it back, so I need a...
Are they, how far in the track are they? Or are they gonna be in the?
They're in the shoulder.
In the shoulder.
Keeps them out of the ditch.
Right, is that, 6:10, do we switch into your hearing?
Well, we can
Do this?
finish this up and we'll
Okay,
get
is that 190th there they're doing it on? Is that right, going west of College Springs? It looks like it is.
290th.
290th, I mean, yeah. That's where a few years ago we had an issue.
Right.
Is they on the other side of the road this time, or what?
I'm not sure. He's got permits for either side of the road.
Either way, he needs it, because that's where there was a,
Right, there's a fiber in the,
yeah, a big issue,
I think it's in
right in
the
the
south
track,
side,
and it
yeah.
got muddy and terrible.
I'll make a note on that permit.
Just, yeah, but that was a not a local, that wasn't IMO that did that a few years ago.
Correct.
Okay. Does everybody understand
Yep.
that deal? Are you got a motion on that?
I so move that we approve the IAMO utility permits.
The second.
Okay, motion second, discussion on that. Gonna make a note to use caution, because that's where we had a problem in the past. Okay, vote on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, got that done. You wanna go into the hearing?
I need to open the hearing, and we'll talk.
Go down to D there on the agenda, 5D.
Make a motion that we open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion and a second, going to public hearing for 5-year road plan, 25-year budget. I guess we'll vote on that.
I'm hoping we'll do the public hearing for both, close the public hearing, and then take action for both.
Yeah, so we're opening up the hearing for the 25 DOT budget and the 5-year.
5-year program.
So make that, is that part of your motion?
Yeah, sorry. I'll make a motion that we do a public hearing for the fiscal year 25 DOT budget, as well as the fiscal year 25 county 5-year road program.
So that's our complete motion then to fix. So,
I'll second it.
a second, okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay, we're in our public
Okay, the
hearing.
first thing,
Go ahead,
I'd like to draw your attention to the DOT budget.
map up there.
Now, we'll get to the map later. The map comes later. Let's get to the budget first.
Okay, yeah.
The budget numbers are the same as the county budget that was approved
Right.
earlier this week. This is just a different format. So to a certain extent, this is a formality.
Yep.
The expenditures are the same, the revenues are the same. Well, I populate the one from the other. We work on the county budget, and then I put it in the DOT budget.
Right,
So,
totally different numbers. You have totally different line item numbers, or line
Correct,
items.
correct.
Yes,
I just
that's the
got-
difference. Yep,
12 items here and
yeah,
150 on the other one.
the other one, on the county one, yes.
Okay, so that's all I have on that. If you draw your attention to the 5-year program, it's the legal size tabulation, and then we have the map, and I'm gonna talk off the map. We have the map displayed here for the public. And not a big dog and pony show, just a few projects we have scattered over the 5 years of this. Of course, this fiscal year 25 starts in July of this year. We're gonna start at the upper left-hand corner of the map in green for 2025. This coming fiscal year is the Essex North Bridge. That's the big bridge over the East Nishnabogna on D Avenue, a sister of the bridge west of Essex. We just got done building last year. It's scheduled for letting in August, and we happen to have on the agenda, outside of the public hearing, a federal aid agreement for that very bridge. So we're gonna let it in August, as I said, and we'll be building it over the winter, this coming winter. Next bridge, if you go to the east, it's up on the Nyman Road, a bridge on the curve there. It's an older bridge, still a little bit weight limited, not severe, but we pushed it back to 2029. Consultant initial plan, they had a curved bridge there. Curved bridge is not needed, so we gotta back up and figure something else out. The next project is in yellow on 170th Street, J28 extension, or it's J28, but not paved. It's the second bridge in. It's over the East Tarkio. It's to give you a feel for it, it's 20 feet wide, has angle iron handrail. So it's an older rural style bridge, and you know, it's certainly hampering modern ag equipment and travel. You come down south there in the light blue, a couple bridges there at Yorktown. This also involves a stretch of, we'll take out 2 bridges, put 1 back,
Camp.
and that's, no, Alan, there's nowheres,
Yeah,
nowhere some landowners and Myers, some other landowners. So, yeah, east of Kent's.
yeah.
We go further down into the lower right-hand corner, lighter blue. This is the J53 project on the federal aid route. We had a different plan for it, but now it's base stabilization with a HMA surface delayed to 2026, not fiscal year 2026. Going around the bottom left-hand corner in the green is this HSIP local job, a guardrail upgrade on 3 bridges. They're west of M48. These bridges are on J64. This is in response to that complaint we had about guardrail last fall. This is grant money. Just came up, we haven't got the funding agreement for that, but that's in this fiscal year. It should be fairly straightforward to develop. Next project is in the lighter blue again, 2026 C Avenue Bridge over the West Tark. That's a bridge on a curve, and we're in the beginning of that project development scheduled for 2026. It'll be the next, we plan to be the next bridge after the Essex Bridge. North of there is a culvert on C Avenue, just a tributary of the West Tark. And then above that in a pinkish color, once again on fiscal year 2029, is a bridge. We're hoping to replace it with a culvert on F Avenue. A note to that, between Iowa 2 and J52, there's only the 1 bridge on F Avenue, and we'd replace it with a culvert, so then that segment of road would be good. That's the program includes a Farnbacher Rock Hall next year. It doesn't show on the map because it's, 50, 60 miles scattered across the county. It doesn't show up, but it shows up in the tabulation. And then, I don't put Farnbacher Rock Halls out in the latter years. We just bring those in closer to the accomplishment year. Questions on the 5-year program?
The 26th year, that starts in July, the next year, So like on J53, when would that be? Would that be the fall of that? That'd be the
Okay, this is 2024.
next July.
Okay,
You're-
calendar year 24 is construction season 24. We need to wait, we're gonna wait a year in between, so in calendar year construction season 25, we won't have it. In construction season 26, which is
That'd be the end of 25, or is that gonna
the
be?
end years. So there'll be one break, 1 year in between. J55 this year, skip a year,
So the-
J53.
So the fall of 25 will be 26 budget, right?
Yeah,
So it'll be the fall of 25, is what we're talking about for that. Because we're skipping a year. Am I wrong about that?
No.
Fiscal year. 26 starts in July of 25, right?
right.
Yes,
So are we gonna be in,
We'll probably,
wait another year, so it'd be,
because we need to wait till,
it'd be the spring of 26 then, or summer of 20,
right,
before
that's when
July.
we'll let it.
So it'd
We'll let
be
it
done
in
the fall,
December of 25.
to be built summer 26 or something?
Yes,
Okay.
because that's when we kick, that we get another
It's more money
dose of
built in
federal
there.
money, yeah,
Okay.
building up our funds.
How much money was that from federal funds?
It'll be
on
1.9 million in federal money.
So on that 3.9 million and 26, 1.9 of that's coming from the federal, is that right? So it'd be 2 million out of our, okay. Well-
The estimate of cost is about 2.4 million on that.
That cost 2.4, and they're gonna cover 1.9,
Yeah. Rest is farm market match.
that's good. Okay, now in this hearing part, we don't let anybody has any suggestions on this.
Right, right, I mean, it's public hearing,
So we're explaining it now, we need to open up to, you ready for that?
yeah.
Or the plan, the 5-year plan, have any comments on that? The map and what kind of the next 5 years looks like? Anybody got any more questions here about it? Any other information on it?
That's what I got.
Okay, that's what we got. Nobody else has any comments on it, I guess we'll go out of our hearing. Sounds good?
Yeah.
We're good, then need a motion to go out of public hearing then.
I'll make a motion that we go out of the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay? Just vote on that, I guess, we'll go out.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay, we're out of our public hearing.
I need to
Take action on that.
take action on the budget and the program.
We need a motion on that.
I'll move that we approve the FY '25 DOT budget and the FY '25 county 5-year program.
Okay,
On second.
now second, any discussion on that? If not, we'll vote on that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
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 I got a sign here.
okay. Just so I can do that.
I'm gonna go back to the.
See, okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We're gonna back up to C there, I think, is that where you wanna go?
The last thing on the agenda, I believe, is the federal aid agreement for the Essex North Bridge. You have that, it's a 7-page document. The first 2 pages are the most interesting. The rest is the federal aid boilerplate. Basically, we have an estimated cost of 3.7 million, a raise grant, competitive raise grant that was awarded to Page County last fall to 2.96 million, almost 3 million in extra bridge money. Take care of this bridge, match with farm to market funds. And we do these with all our federal aid jobs.
So, I understand, need a motion on that agreement for that grant?
I'll make a motion to approve the federal aid agreement 4-24 raise -004 for the project HDP-C073 139-CB or 6B-73.
Got her all, okay.
I'll second it.
That's clear.
That's a lot, yeah.
That's
clear as
one.
mud.
We got a second on that, all right, any discussion on that?
It's the Essex North Bridge.
Essex North Bridge, yes.
Enter into that federal aid agreement? Okay, if no discussion, we'll vote on it.
Yes.
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 Okay,
Thank you.
sign that, or,
Yes.
all right. Okay. Right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there you go.
We got more.
All right. Next up, we have number 6 there on the agenda is 190th J Road by Andy Audis. We went out there tonight, tile line discussion, so. The tube placement. We have all these papers here that got in front of us here, the undid elevation. Trying to figure out what to do. Went out there and looked at it. You want to go up and go ahead?
Yeah, so I'm Nick Heyer, I'm the Page County Inspector, Civil Engineering Technician, responsible for the project management, making sure everything gets done according to the plans sent in by the developer and executed by the contractor. That first page that I gave you is a general overview of all the elevations. Jacob Case and I of Case Land Survey went out last Friday, calculated all these elevations based off the benchmark elevation of 1030.96, which is the top of the beam line B beam. If you want to tear that off, we'll be referencing several points as we go down, if it's easier for you. The next one is a digital elevation map of the corner in question prior to the installation of.
You have one more of those.
Yes, I believe JD has.
Andy, you want to just come up here and sit down? So this is Andy, he's his place out there. He can just look at it while you go. If you have an extra one, do you have an extra one? Yeah, there's an extra one here. Andy can look at it while we go through this. Maybe just come up here, we can see that, Andy. So take the top page, we're gonna use that.
Yeah, that'll be called out throughout the presentation here. So the first color picture that you have there in the packet is a digital elevation model prior to the installation of the 48-inch CMP pipe that runs east and west under the north-south road. You can see 4 circles there in the corner. Those are highlighted low spots in the ditch. The 2 of the east-west, which east-west is running from the center up and left. Those are the approximate locations of Mr. Audis' drain tile exits. And there is a 3rd low spot in the north-south ditch running from the center of the page to the right. That marks the drain tile exit for the north-south ditch. And the elevations on those taken last Friday, the 2 drain tile exits west, these elevations were taken from the top of the drain tile. The 2 to the west are at 1,021.89 feet above sea level, and the drain tile in the north-south ditch is at 1,021.3. Second in the line there is the west ditch bottom, undisturbed. So as we were standing out there looking at it, you can see where they had excavated and where they hadn't. So where they hadn't excavated yet, that elevation is 1,024.12. And in the north-south ditch, the undisturbed is at 1,022.37. The next page there is a digital elevation map after we have installed the 48-inch pipe. I have marked the approximate location with the yellow points of the drain tile exits. And as you can see in the east-west ditch, which is now running from the center of the page down and left, the low spots are no longer there. And in the north-south ditch, the low spot is still apparent there. No excavation has happened on the north-south ditch side, so where that low spot is the ground elevation. On the next page is straight out of the plan set for the entire bridge project. The highlighted line is the culvert that we just installed, the 48-inch CMP that runs along the north side of the road. About the center, there's a category called the flow line elevation. That elevation is 1022.50. And if on the first page, you can match that up to the flow line of the 48-inch CMP culvert tube. is 1022.43, which means that the tube is 0.07 lower than plan elevation. 0.333 is the equivalent of 4 inches. 0.07, you could do the math and figure it out, but it's an inch or less, more than that.
But what we're saying here, what you're saying is that where the pipe was already way higher than, or higher than his tile lines, is what you're trying to say.
No, that is not what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, what, so, because the
The
bottom of the,
lower the number, the closer to sea level, meaning the deeper in the ground it is.
so was his tile lines,
The tile line elevations on the west ditch are at 1,021,
Right.
which is 0.8 lower than the flow line of the inlet.
that's what I was trying to say
Okay.
to you. So you're saying that those tile lines for all time were put in too low? They're below the flow line?
Yes,
And that's where we're having issues here.
yes.
That's the whole thing, is
That
all
is the
that.
whole issue, yes, I agree with
So
you.
when the
on
pipe was stuck in the ground, it was put in lower than the flow line, lower than the tube,
Mhm.
which makes no sense. All these measurements don't mean anything, because there's no way they put those pipes in below the flow line. That would make zero sense.
The
I mean,
drain
still
tile
think
is
the
what you're
drain
saying.
tile, yes.
Okay,
So that's where we're at a problem here, because Andy's sitting right here, been there, so were the tile lines below the flow line?
Yeah, there was water set, when the water ran through the old tube, there was a place in the corner of the water set, where it was cut out a little bit. That water never touched, or it barely touched, the bottom of my tile lines, any.
I
So that's what
understand
doesn't add up, that's the
understand
problem.
that. But
I
I
know,
was asked to investigate, and
I
so I
know.
got all the elevations from when
I
I
know.
was handed the project that I could get.
that's where it's a problem. These look really good, but I don't know how to make sense of this, because,
The project was developed prior to my employment,
right,
and I never ventured out that direction, out towards River Market, so I've never physically seen this intersection until
Right.
I was hired by the county. The next page is cross-sections. The highlighted area lists the plan elevation, inlet elevation there of 1022.5, just another page that shows the tile, or the 48-inch tube is installed within 0.07 of plan elevation. The very last page is the pre-construction survey data used in project development, sent straight to me from the design firm, HGM. The highlighted areas were the existing elevations of the ditch bottoms prior to construction. So when the survey, which I believe was Jacob Case, we spoke about it on Friday, he did the topographical survey for this site. His calculation of the ditch bottom, his elevation check of the ditch bottom is that of the east-west ditch, it's very hard to see because the culvert inlet drawn there kind of pokes over it. But if you go to the apron of the culvert that you can see there, it says 1,023 was the established ditch bottom prior to construction. And in the north-south ditch, I've highlighted it there. It's, you follow the topmost highlight down to the corner, and it was 1,022 at the bottom of the ditch prior to construction. I've also highlighted the two numbers closest to the drain tiles in the east-west and the north-south. Prior to construction, those elevations were at 1,022.95 in the east-west ditch and 1,022.38, I believe, in the north-south ditch. Both those elevations are 8 inches to a foot above the drain tile elevations recorded.
that's where our pickle is, because I know all this looks fancy, but that means that the tile is a foot lower than the
It
run of
means the
water.
tile, the reason none
That's
of
what
it was
this is
caught,
saying, but that makes no sense to history, so that's the problem.
the reason none of these tiles were recorded in any of the development side of the project is because they were under the ground. That's what this says.
So silt had come up in places, like we talked about looking out there, and so we measured from a silted in ditch to get our drain line. But again, if you're saying the bottom of the pipe was still a foot higher than the tiles, that makes no sense. If the actual hard pipe, not the
The
silt.
developer and the surveyor had no idea that those drain tiles were in those ditch bottoms.
I understand, I'm just trying to
So
figure
they
this out.
could not, according to them, in the development of the project, based on all the information they were given, that was the ditch bottom.
I understand, but if they're saying the actual pipe, they stick their survey stick on the pipe and took a reading. If they're saying that's a foot above, where these tile lines kicked out, that makes no sense, because it wouldn't have worked. Wouldn't have worked for a lot of years, so that's where I'm having a hard time with these measurements they have, because,
You can see in the second digital elevation model, the color photo, the second one there, or the
Yeah.
first one, excuse me, the first one. Those low spots that I highlighted there, those are below the ground level. As those drain tiles were under the ground, water would seep out the end of it, because water's gonna find the path of least resistance. As it comes out, it's going to erode anything beneath the surface and create a sinkhole. And then new rains would bring fresh silt from up the ditch and fill them in. And it was just a never-ending process of sinkhole, fill in, sinkhole, fill in. And Andy, you specified out there that it was 15 years that those had been installed, roughly?
Well, I've been here 20 years, and one of I think the deepest one was there before I was there.
Okay, so over 15 years for the deepest one.
Where these two red arrows are on this, is quite a bit higher than what that ditch tube was, the road tube was, in the corner.
Correct.
I mean, there was quite a bit of cutout in that corner.
The reason we removed the diagonal tube as it cut under the road and went to the south side of the road prior to construction, the reason I believe they moved that away is as that water drained to the south side of the road, it met with another drainage ditch and it had cut a large chasm in the south side of the road.
Right.
Keeping half the water on the north side of the road will help prevent any further erosion.
right. So our whole thing here, trying to figure out so we don't do this again, that's what we talked about out there, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again, so we got a problem. Again, where the water goes into that tube, not even the silt, just right where the bottom of that tube edge. These measurements, this fancy stuff says it was a foot higher than all these tile lines kicking out, and I don't care if there's dirt on them now or not, that would have never worked when they put them in new. So that's the problem, this is very fancy, but I don't,
I'm sorry, you started talking.
where the water goes in the pipe,
The 48-inch pipe.
yeah, where it used to go in, the old pipe, that measurement, which you have on here, if it's a foot higher than all these tile lines kick out, that's what these measurements are showing, is somebody measured wrong, because
That's what I was trying to explain to you, and maybe I didn't do it very good the first time. No one knew those tile lines were there during project development.
is these measurements accurate, though? Somebody took a
Yes,
measurement?
me and Jacob Case of Case Land Survey took these measurements on that first page
Fine.
Friday.
So okay, but the measurement from before all the construction, the old pipe, where the bottom of that old pipe was, who took that measurement?
I believe it was Jacob Case again, but I'm not 100%
Because
sure.
that's what I'm trying to, because that pipe, the old pipe where it's at, that depth is what matters.
That depth is approximately 5 to 6 feet further down the ditch line into the corner.
And so,
So that measurement is not important.
but that's what we had to establish for the true ditch, true bottom, so everything drained. The
If they're
old,
buried, how can you tell?
no, the pipe, the water goes in, the bottom of that pipe is, it's all, not buried, that's where the water goes in. The bottom of that pipe is the bottom of the ditch, where it goes in there.
Yes, that's why we all agree that there needs to be a T inlet for the north-south ditch.
Exactly, but I'm getting back to the old pipe, where it went under that road, at the bottom of that pipe, whatever that measurement was, is what it had to be when we went back again.
But no one would have known that it needed to be there because the drain tiles were not exposed.
But do you have that measurement? If you're telling me it's a foot higher, somebody measured wrong, is what I'm getting at here. So which one is that measurement on here? Which one is the original pipe bottom on the inlet side?
At the very bottom left-hand corner of that intersection, you can see 2 diagonal lines running bottom, down, and left of the very last page.
Last page. Let's see, we need to get a number here, so
There are 2 parallel lines that run down and to the left from the middle of
yeah,
that.
that's the old tube.
That is the old tube.
Okay, what is
If you go to the
that?
beginning of that tube, there is an arrow
Yeah, I
that
see.
follows the red line. That elevation is 1,020.73, which correctly puts it below the old drain tile.
And we just solved it, that's where we should have built off of, right there.
When they developed this corner, they knew that they were gonna move that drain, the 48-inch pipe was going to be rotated and moved to the north side of the road and pushed 4 to 5 feet to the east,
Which would gain elevation.
which would gain elevation.
That's what happened, now I see it.
Now, not knowing that the drain tiles were there during that process, it was an error that, not an error, it was something that was not seen as an issue because no one knew that it would be an issue because no one knew the drain tiles were there.
But we raised the elevation. Because to insinuate that this was the way it was, and those tile lines were just silted over, and that's the way they've been, that doesn't make any sense. This makes sense. Now I see what happened. So whoever established that, so who established that? Who decided that? Who
To
made the
move the-
decision? Yeah, to
the
say,
48-inch
we're gonna
pipe.
raise it up a foot.
To move the 48-inch pipe was done by the design engineer and signed off by JD, members of the DOT, and yourselves.
Yeah, so whenever we raised it, so now we figured out what happened here. A foot came right there, that's when it happened, because that's the true bottom. That's where we should have shot for, and that's where we lost it. So now we know what happened.
Well, and as much tile as there is in the ground anymore, if anybody's gonna raise it too, they need to contact the landowner and say, hey, is
We're
there
coming up a foot.
tile lines out here?
Yes, absolutely, I agree that tile line record keeping should be, if you're going to dump a tile line into county right of way, you should have permit for right of way access, and those locations need to be logged somewhere so that anytime we do any ditch cleaning, fiber optic comes through, all of that is readily available for whoever needs it.
But when that decision was made, we gotta figure out, don't do this again. I don't wanna repeat, this is gonna cost a lot of money, what happened here. So when we raise a ditch a foot, if we're gonna raise it, normally we don't. Normally, we're right back to where it was. This deal, we raised a foot and didn't tell anybody on that side of the road. We raised the foot. That's what happened. So try not to repeat this. I know things happen, but we don't wanna repeat this again.
I understand that.
So when we raise, and especially in flat ground, you raise a ditch a foot up, you got a problem. So that's what happened. Now we see the measurement. That's the measurement that matters, that 1,020.73. So our solutions, let's get to the solution side of this. Now we know what happened.
Solutions that we have already got in the works is we have ordered through Metal Culverts a T intersection inlet so that both the east-west and north-south ditch will have entrance into the 48-inch tube. We discussed that on site, multiple other options about adding a second tube to travel east-west under the road to avoid the boring of new tile line or culvert or whatever it may be, excuse me. Those, I did some very rough calculations based off a pricing list that we had at the office before I came, and it looks like we're gonna need 100 feet to get under the road, under its M56 that heads north. The 24-inch pipe is gonna come out to roughly $4,100, $4,150, and an 18-inch pipe is gonna come out to around $2,500. And then we will need another 30-foot section roughly to make the corner around the electrical pole and get it to the riprap that's established there on bridge, so we don't cause any further canyons. 24-inch pipe there is $1,250, and an 18-inch pipe there is $780. Those are very rough numbers. Plus the man hours,
To put it in,
everything else.
dig a ditch and get it
It
in.
will take closer to 3 days to do that. It'll be a day to dig it out, a day to put in the special backfill underneath of it, a day to install the pipe, and more than a day to fill it back in and compact it.
Right,
We're looking at, it was 616 cubic yards of excavation to dig in that 48-inch pipe from start to finish. Probably be around half or a little less than half worth of cubic yard of excavation to do so for these 2 pipe installations.
yeah, it's not near as big a pipe, not going near as far. Not near as far, you're not digging near as far. Okay. Well, I mean, we have to return it to the pre-depth. That's the actual ditch bottom before silt, that's what it is. Okay. Well, we'll get some numbers on all these things and look at it, what it costs to actually do it, to do options, the different options. Andy, what do you think? What do you?
Well, we get enough tile, that's big enough one in there to get rid of the water, right?
Okay. Matt, I appreciate you putting all this together, this makes a lot more sense. I can see them then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, Any other discussion on that? You see the map there, what we got?
So then JD or somebody will bring some official quotes on different plans.
Some ideas?
sure that there's an updated pricing list and.
Okay, just some, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see, what's next? Agenda. Next up's the solar ordinance. Talk about that a little bit.
You got the VA property.
Oh, I missed that. I did miss the VA, oh, number 7, that's right. Okay, number 7, we went over last week to Shenandoah after our meeting to the VA building, and they're wanting to do volunteers or raising money and doing volunteer hours. They want to put some concrete, trees, et cetera, on the property, and we looked at what they wanted to do, and we need to have a motion to say that's all right.
Did you get, her email today?
Yes, it
I didn't see that.
was very nice.
Yeah, but it also.
It also had
it was
some
an
other-
update of what we needed, what we
Okay.
talked about doing too.
Yes.
I'll read that.
So-
Go ahead and read that.
Um, if we can find it. Maybe.
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, I don't know whether I deleted it or what I did. Sometimes it does.
I have it right here.
You got it, that's fine, go ahead.
You want- So,
Read it if you want.
yeah, so she sent a list of improvements. So the building measurements were 114.6, so 114 feet, 6 inches by 40 feet. And some of the work being done is building needs power washed, primed, and painted. Paint color light gray with all doors and trim to be painted white. Outside door for Zion office needs replaced. Outside water hydrant and the gravel for parking lot leveled out. She had a diagram and dimensions of some things on there for the building and how it's broken up, conference rooms and things. So,
We can explore what we can do with that, where we can find the funding or take some bids on those issues. The one for tonight is their volunteer stuff.
I would move that we would approve concrete work and trees being planted in the area behind the building.
To the east there.
to the east. Yep.
Yeah,
I would
they go
second
around
that,
there.
I would second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second, and they showed us what they wanted to do, it looked real nice. Any discussion on that? If not, we'll vote on that, I guess.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
okay, so they can go ahead and get started on that, we can look into those issues they brought up. We saw these over there. Okay, if we're done with that, next up, solar ordinance, information on that and gathering things.
I looked at what Todd sent, and basically, Todd, on the Madison County one, all you
Yeah.
crossed out were the things that said Madison County.
well, that was a lot of it, and then I
That
did,
was basically it, yes. I started through
not
it,
all of it,
But
because
most of it.
there's other things I crossed out.
but it was most of it, but I started through it, and I was crossing out. The Madison County ordinance is not friendly at all to any solar project.
Who's it friendly to?
I'm not sure who it's
The
friendly to.
neighbors, maybe?
But no, I don't think so. It's written basically to prevent solar, in my opinion. The Mills County ordinance is written to encourage, and it states it, it's written to encourage economic development, protect property values, and protection of health, safety, and welfare, while avoiding adverse impacts on ag lands, conservation lands, etc. But there are so many things in the Madison County thing that are,
Which one? What's some of them?
I told you, Jacob, I went through and I started crossing out everything, basically.
Everything?
There's just so much in there that's ridiculous. 10-foot feeder lines, that's one of the things. And along with Mace, I will say that I have heard from a lot of people, a lot of citizens that have said, Page County is trying to stop any sort of progress. And that's just
Well,
my statement, that's just
I
my
have a question.
statement,
Yep.
because I'm getting it from people.
I
They're
know.
saying, what is the matter with solar now? We understand, you know, what you're doing, what you did with wind, although we don't agree with that, but solar,
And,
the noise?
and I
Where's
think,
the noise?
yeah, and I'm not saying that we can't talk about that stuff, because I think this is all learning, and all this Madison County thing was just a guide. It wasn't, never set in stone. The other thing is, I think there's gonna be two differences of opinions, just like there was probably with wind and anything that affects rural people versus people that live in town.
Well, I've talked to rural
People that live
people,
in town, well, I've talked to rural people too, and most of them are saying, protect me.
and that's fine, but what is the issue with
No.
solar? It's just, I mean,
No, and I
there are
think
just so many theories, I would say even conspiracy theories on some
there
things,
may be.
and I think that's ridiculous.
Do you think this sounds extreme on noise or sound? This reading here says, noise from any assembling or manufacturing process shall be inaudible 200 feet from the industrial district boundary. Like
I think
you
you're gonna have a thing around it, you're either gonna have a fence,
Right.
you're gonna have shrubbery, whatever.
But do you
I don't
think-
think you need all of that.
This ordinance here says inaudible, like zero sound. Do you think that's extreme? Inaudible?
I think the Madison County is extreme, period.
Do you think being inaudible,
I'm telling you
Is
what I'm
extreme.
thinking, Jacob. I don't wanna argue, I'm just
I'm not
telling
trying to
you
argue, all I'm
what
gonna
I
say is,
think.
this ordinance you signed.
Because the Madison, what did I
This is
sign?
2008, our ordinance in Page County for industrial things. It says, at the boundary, things should be inaudible.
That was totally, that was,
It's for
I had
industri-
nothing to do with that.
I'm just saying, you were the auditor. I'm saying.
I was the auditor, I signed it as
All
the
I'm
auditor,
saying
not
is
as the
it was passed
supervisor.
in Page County.
And I did not have any impact on it because I was the auditor and I was
Okay, I'm just
testing.
saying, this is not Madison County, it's Page County. All
I
I'm
was
saying-
attesting to it, I was not approving it.
I understand, so
I
you're
was not
you're
a
against this?
supervisor.
Are you against this ordinance?
I was not a supervisor at that time.
I'm asking if you're against what we have in place.
I'm
in
telling you
Page
what I'm
County.
against right now, and that is the Madison County ordinance, period.
Okay, so moving on from that, are you against what we have in place from Page County that currently is on the books? And if we don't do an ordinance, this is what they're gonna have to
I'm
abide by.
telling you, I'm against the Madison County ordinance.
Okay,
Okay, so if we're writing an ordinance today, it probably needs to match what we have on the books,
this is what's already on.
right?
No,
Or,
if you write one, it's gonna supersede that.
Yes, and so what we have,
It's gonna
actually,
change what's on there.
some of
no,
the
but
things,
even
Because
if,
the solar ordinance is gonna be a solar ordinance
it will
as
take over
such.
this, right?
but even if, okay, but then if it matches what we already have,
But I don't think that's what this is.
okay.
I'm,
So,
I'm
so
just,
what, I
I'm,
guess,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna argue with
No,
you
I-
because you're gonna do what you wanna do, the two
No,
of you.
don't say that.
Discuss
No,
it,
you
this is
are.
an argument.
Because you like the Madison County wind ordinance, you like the Madison County solar ordinance, which is, to me, is totally, taking away any thought of progression or anything.
Here's the thing, no offense to Mid-America, but letting Mid-America write our solar ordinance is not a good plan.
Mid-America has been consulted by other counties in talking about things.
We need to put it together, we can listen to them, listen to the concerned people, the neighbors. The salesman shouldn't write the ordinance. I mean, do you believe salesmen should? No.
What you're basically saying is that
But we haven't even settled on anything.
No, we haven't said anything.
What you're
That's what's
basically,
crazy about it, we're fighting about it, we haven't even settled on
what
it.
you're saying is, you don't want to listen to the experts.
The salesman.
You don't want, no, you don't want to listen to the people who are in the know
Who? Who's
about
that?
Mid-American.
That's the
Knows,
sales.
they've done other solar projects.
But they're profiting from that.
I don't care, they
That-
know what a solar project is, they've done it in other counties.
I understand that, but when we're writing an ordinance to think about all sides, not just the side that wants to do it, we have to consider all parties.
You can, but you can also listen to them and learn from them.
You-
You're insinuating we haven't listened or?
Yes, I am,
Okay,
yes.
all right,
So you
well,
can move forward.
move forward with what? I'm looking at, I pulled up what we have in place in Page County, which would be more restrictive in some areas than what we're trying to do. And it's been in place for a long time, so,
And we've never had to use it.
no, but this is
So-
what's
so
been in place for
which-
years. here, was agreed
But
upon.
what I'm saying, if
Long
you write a
before.
solar ordinance, it's gonna take over that.
Yes.
It's gonna take it, that, yeah.
But we're not being
So what you've
extreme
done-
to look at things that are less restrictive than this is.
And those things were written before a lot of this was common use too.
Noise is noise on the neighbor. Doesn't matter what's making the noise. If it doesn't make any noise, like Mason,
And
it
it
makes
depends
zero
on-
noise, then it doesn't even matter.
It depends on people's perception of noise too.
Yeah.
They
So-
can, we put decibels,
Yeah.
it's measured.
Yeah.
We're not just saying somebody's opinion, it's a
And
measurement.
I don't know, William, if it makes less, like zero noise most of the time,
I mean, it makes zero noise. Let me clarify.
Well, that
So-
doesn't even matter, we put in the noise section then.
Right, so I mean,
Yes, it does.
if you want to get in the
If it makes
weeds,
zero
I can
noise,
get in
it
the weeds
doesn't
with you
matter.
to the extent possible. You know, I'm not a subject matter expert in everything solar. I've been to a lot of solar projects, talked to our operations managers a lot. I consult with counties a lot too, and they have a lot of these same questions. You know, a lot of the noise comes from the inverters. The inverters are fan cooled. You know, in the summertime, they're also heated through electrical resistance in the wintertime. If you go up to our Holiday Creek solar project outside Fort Dodge, you go over to our Arbor Hill solar project over near Stewart. Those inverters are placed internally within the project itself, basically to mitigate the propagation of noise to exterior boundaries from the project itself.
so more in the center of the project?
Correct. I will say from personal experience, and that's why I threw those supervisors' names on there,
I did pull up the Boone County one.
yeah, the Boone County one, they just passed that, I think, as well.
Looked at it.
And they just went through it. I mean, that's why they came to us. They said, we'd like a tour. We didn't have anything to do there. We didn't have any project, but they said, we know Mid-American has a project in Fort Dodge. Fort Dodge reached out to us. They said, hey, Boone County wants a site tour. Can you help facilitate that? I said, sure thing. Let's get our operations team there. I'll be there. You guys can ask whatever questions you want. We had one supervisor. We had the zoning administrator that came to that project, and I'm literally, from me to you, having a conversation with them 5 feet away from an inverter. It's not a hard thing to do. I mean, they're not very loud. You know, I understand the back and forth about the noise section, especially, you know, coming off of like a wind ordinance, where it is more pronounced than a solar project. But if you want, you know, to have hands-on experience with it, with what a solar project actually does, I mean, I would be more than happy to facilitate any sort of
And-
tour at our
Right,
Arbor Hill.
and we can go look at them, that'd be a good idea, like we did tonight, going out there, but if there is no noise, then if we put 40 decibels on there, it doesn't even matter. Because if they don't make noise, it's not gonna restrict anybody. I mean,
Sure.
it's just limiting, if somebody hooks up something different that is loud, it would stop that. So if there's no noise, it's a non-issue.
Sure, but I mean, the thing about the Madison County ordinance, once again, if you want to get in the weeds, we can get in the weeds. It's not taken from residences.
From who?
It's not taken from residences, the measurement on here for the noise.
For the property line?
It's taken from property.
Well, in our
lines,
Page
right?
County zoning ordinance, it's measured from the property line already, what we have in place.
For
which
the
you would-
industrial areas?
Yeah, you would have to abide by that if we didn't do an ordinance.
Well, would it be
And
zoned industrial or would it be?
Everything, I don't know on that, but everything we
Yeah.
have done as a board, myself, I respect the property line.
Okay.
You're not, in my opinion, you're not gonna put some 10 feet from a fence and make it where I can't live up to the edge of my place, either build a house, build a barn, whatever.
Sure.
So we measure, if it needs a setback, I believe it should be measured from property line, not from a residence, because things change. We want people to move to the country.
Sure, but I mean,
So-
it also, I think you need to take the viewpoint of like, what are you protecting? You know, looking at our project specifically, you know, a lot of the projects will be located in rural parts of the county. You know, you have a back 40, a quarter somewhere. If you're gonna be protecting the center part of a section from, you know, noise complaints or something like that, what's the occupancy levels, how frequent is someone gonna be out there, you know, that kind of stuff. I understand what you're
To
saying about that.
decide what somebody else does, they can't even build on their own house. I mean, building a house is more a standard, a right than building a solar farm. Building a
Right, no,
house-
I understand that, but in that scenario, you know, someone's not gonna build a house on the center parcel of a 40 or of
So
a
it shouldn't
quarter
hurt them.
section.
And like,
And I don't wanna get into it with you, know, I will say that they are quiet, I don't have a ton of concerns about the sound, I do have a little bit of concern with the measurement from the property line, just because it's atypical from what we've seen in a lot of county ordinances throughout the state of Iowa. But I mean, that's not gonna be the deal breaker for us, but I will say, I mean, to Supervisor Clark's comments, the overall structure of the ordinance is extremely prohibitive. Even though, you know, some of these measurements on here, some of the requirements on here might not look extremely prohibitive on their face, when you get into the language of it, the actual structure of it, and the meat and potatoes of it, it's very restrictive, and I mean, there's a reason why there's no solar project that's been erected in Madison County.
There's lots of counties that don't have solar projects.
Right, I know, but that's why I
We're
would
one of
say,
them.
you know, don't take it from us, go get it from a county that actually has one in place, and ask, you know, how many complaints they've gotten from their constituents, ask how they thought the construction process went. You know, Wapello County has a 112 megawatt solar farm, it's not ours. Webster County has a 100 megawatt solar farm that is ours. You got Adair County that has one of ours, you got Woodbury, you got,
Do you know how many
Black
companies
Hawk?
operate solar in the state?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
So, but
But,
with a property line, now they don't have it where you can waive the setback in theirs, which I think,
Correct.
we talked about last week, I think we make that where you can waive it just like the wind. So then it's just a matter of making sure all the neighbors know what's going on, and they
Yeah,
can.
and I mean, that's what I've been
Join
doing too, I mean, I went and
I'm
talked
just
to.
saying,
and I guess
Even
I
if
was
the next
curious
project-
too.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
it
Yeah,
makes them talk.
there's a legitimate concern there. I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of projects that are being proposed in the state of Iowa, it's a good thing to have an ordinance in place so that people would adhere to it. Because I think that regardless, there's gonna be solar projects that are gonna be coming down the pipeline throughout the entire state. So I think it's good planning from the county's behalf to actually institute something and put something in place that will balance those concerns of constituents of the counties, protect against those folks, but also, you know, allow the erection and operation of these projects.
And if you remember, a couple weeks ago, we had neighbors that came in that are close to this project and had no objections to
Right.
it.
Right.
And that's where
they're
this
the-
ordinance
They're
is
the ones
about.
that are putting it in, right? Or that's their
What?
land, that's their land, it's.
No,
protected
that's
they're
not
the
their
neighbors.
land.
Oh, it's not?
They're
We
close.
did have Gordon
The
Boone here
Wagner
back in
family.
November.
Okay.
And down, and for that, yes, and if there's no issues,
I
it'll be
guess
fine down there.
Yeah.
We're talking about, this is an ordinance not just for this
Right.
project, this is
Yeah.
beyond.
I know
this
that,
project.
Jacob,
That's
but
what
you're,
I'm-
The
but
one
what you're
thing
doing for this is,
that I've kind of learned, so just from, you know, what was said earlier from Mace, I would be curious to the transfer lines or the transmission lines.
So there's
That,
there's a
are they
transmission.
mostly just inside the project area?
Yeah, so you gotta break it down a little bit, because transmission lines will be things that are running overhead. Those would be things that we're interconnecting into, which is on the property existing, which is why the property was chosen largely.
Okay, what about the feeder?
You have the feeder lines, they'll go between the modules themselves, back to the inverters, and then from the inverters, they'll be run from DC to AC, back to the project substation to a transformer, they'll be stepped up and put onto the power grid.
Okay, so where is the?
so you're not gonna have
the
anybody
substation.
coming and doing anything that's gonna go down in the ground where the feeder lines are.
We have projects that have both. We have projects that have the feeder lines underground. We have projects that have the feeder lines that run along the actual module tracking systems, because
Yep.
There's no need for 10 feet deep, though.
10 feet deep would be extremely prohibitive.
Excessive,
It's, I question the intent behind that, I guess.
Well, we talked about that at
Well,
length.
yeah, and so
you
my,
don't dig into it.
our biggest concern was somebody
be-
be farming and hit one.
So,
They have
Or
been hit.
digging, and that has happened several times.
right, but this would be a secured facility. I mean, it has.
Right, so if those lines are just in that facility, and
Yeah,
they're not going to
they're not
be.
running on adjacent parcels, no.
They'd
Okay.
be in the right of way anywhere.
No, they'd be on the project property. We don't run them in the right of way. You run them in the project property back to
Then
the
that-
substation,
yeah.
which is all contiguous. And then from the substation, everything that's stepped up will be above ground and it'll go onto the transmission line.
Okay.
So there'll be no farming practices taking place on the property while it's in operations. So there'll be no, that's why I question Madison
Yeah.
County's intent when they put that in there, because what are you protecting from? If anybody's on the property that's gonna be doing digging, they're trespassing.
Right. Yeah, so I think in my thought was that similar to wind, where they run, you know, transmission lines down through everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yep.
underground, and they're digging through tile lines and all
Right, you got
this other
dual
stuff.
use going there. You
Yep.
got tile lines, you got
Yep.
agricultural
Yeah,
crops.
and so
being
that
grown
was
on
our
top.
concern with
That's
having the
understandable.
10-foot,
And there's
um,
trenchers, you can dig 10 foot deep. This is
The
not-
gas lines aren't even buried 10 feet deep.
No, I mean, I can speak from experience. Transmission gas lines are gonna be 4 foot, 6 foot deep, usually upon installation. You'll have erosion over top, you'll have all sorts of things that'll happen over a 50, 60-year span, that those things might get exposed over time. I mean, I was a gas engineer for 4 years.
right, okay.
The gas pipes that go
The
through
amount
cities
of-
are often 2 feet.
Everybody I've talked to said 6 feet max. And.
Yeah, for
like the-
transmission
like
lines,
gas.
which is
Gas or
mandated
anything
by.
I have
Yeah.
a
Department of
old
Transportation.
trencher myself. I've trenched quite a bit of line, and it's nothing special, it's old, and it's not that fancy, not that big a bar. I can dig 5 feet easy. I could probably dig about 6 with it if I.
Then you
pitch it
probably
down.
dig up a gas line if you do
Right,
that.
but so are you
But
digging
what I'm
tile in
saying
that
is,
case?
this happened, we're not speculating, they hit a power line in Taylor County that wasn't deep enough, wasn't in the right spot, whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, so we're trying to be cautious here,
Yeah.
especially in right-of-ways and situations where we're off. We do
Yeah.
not want to have the chance of hitting it, and so that's what it's about, trying to be careful, because this is not some little extension cord on the ground. We're talking about a massive amount of electricity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you
It's
have,
below the
we have
estimate.
underground distribution lines going throughout the cities too. I mean, underground electricity isn't new, but I will say that those feeder lines.
Megawatts, you know, we're
Right,
talking about
yeah,
wind,
yeah,
we're talking
yeah.
about a massive amount of electricity. I mean, that's, it weld the excavator together when it hits it, so,
Correct.
it's not,
I mean, the large dictator, that's gonna be the voltage that's gonna be in there.
Yeah.
And you were
Dictated
saying most
response.
transmission lines, what?
Well, anyways, I was gonna say, it's contained within the property, so there won't be any digging on site unless it's done by us. Otherwise, someone, like I said, is gonna be trespassing on our property, and they shouldn't be in the first place. It's gonna be a secure facility, it's gonna be locked, we're gonna have
I have to
keys.
think about, there's no way anybody can hit them that's not tied to it. I have to think about that. That's just, only thought was there to keep people safe and to make it deep enough that when you're going any which way, your odds of hitting that thing's almost, because they're not, several places, I've had contractors going, they're not even where they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
So we were trying to go deep enough that if an error happens, you still don't hit it. They were
Right,
having trouble locating them and finding them, they weren't according to plans, so we're trying to be safe there, so.
right, and that's,
But it's
you
a
know, that's
serious
largely the
thing.
role of USIC as well,
And
or
you
any
can get a
locates.
trencher, dig 10 feet, so it's not an impossible death.
Well, no, it's
So,
not an impossible death.
it's not
but
at all.
It's an additional cost.
Yeah.
It makes maintenance, if there's any faults on the lines, that much more cost prohibitive,
But it's
especially
not
when,
impossible.
especially when you're digging around the pilings too. I mean, if you're gonna be digging 10 feet down to fix a fault on a line or replace a line or something like that, and you might potentially also be digging up the pilings, the foundations, and really starting to get into the integrity of the physical structures themselves.
So your
Piles.
piles, they go how deep? That's a quick question. How deep do they go for a solar panel? They 10 foot deep?
8 to 10.
And what
Depends.
diameter are they? They're like a,
Just like a standard like I-beam. I'm not sure the exact.
so they pound those in?
Yep.
Just pound the I-beam,
Yep,
okay.
yep, they pound them in.
Well, that's something to think about. We don't want anybody to have a chance to hit them crazy things.
No, and I understand that. I mean, that's a valid concern. I mean, especially coming from a utility, you know, safety is paramount. That's why we are always putting out safety messages on the radio and on the TV and everything as well. We don't want anybody hitting our lines either.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it makes a mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that makes a big difference if it's just confined to that property versus going every which way, you know,
yep,
out where people would be farming over the top or put in tiles and not know that they're there. So yeah, so I mean, I think that and the
When they're-
noise. The other thing that I had questions about and people had asked me mostly about was aesthetically. Some people didn't want to, you know, if there was one across the road from them or something, they didn't want to have to look at it or see, you know.
yeah,
And so that's where so we've talked about the 15-foot height versus 20 feet. How does that differ? I mean, is it just, if you go shorter, do you just add more panels to the project, or do you, to get the same?
more pilings, more panels. So the justification behind the higher height would be because you can utilize basically just a larger surface area on a single panel.
Okay.
You'll have less rows of panels overall within the project, but if there's, you know, height restriction, and let me just caveat this by saying, you know, none of our projects right now reach 20 feet. This is something that we recommend to counties as a precaution. Obviously, Mills County didn't take our advice on it, they went with 15, so.
Yeah.
And once again, that's not a deal breaker either. I think 15 is kind of right in that sweet spot of what we'd like to see.
The Madison counties are 14, so it's not much different.
Right, but they also have a 4-foot clearance on the bottom as well.
Most of them have a clearance. What's
Yeah,
the-
a 2-foot.
2 foot or 4?
So if you're talking
2 to
like a
4.
4-foot to 10-foot, I mean, that shrinks it down quite a bit, but then also when you're talking that 4-foot clearance on the bottom side, you're looking at more grading on site in order to maintain that, depending on the topography of the overall site.
Okay.
So it's just things to consider. I mean, when you're drafting these ordinances, like, what are you putting the most emphasis on? Is it the height minimum from the bottom? What are you trying to protect there? In Madison County's ordinance, they claim they're trying to protect, you know, the underlying vegetation. I mean, that's not the case. We've seen our solar projects use low-growing vegetation. We use a lot of low-lying pollinator species as well underneath them that have 2-foot clearance, but you gotta remember, that's also only at the edges. It's not the center, because the center's gonna stay fixed. It's gonna rotate on each edge.
Yep.
And so you're not really protecting the vegetation underneath, and it's just gonna kind of hamstring you on the operation side and construction side, because you're gonna have to do more grading underneath. You're gonna have to put the pilings potentially a little bit higher, and it's gonna, you know, create more shear stress on any winds that will come through the project as well. So keeping it, you know, at that 2-foot mark, I think that's fine. We've worked with that before in the past, hasn't caused the same problems, and I think up to that 15 mark is fine as well.
How often are they fully tilted?
Sunrise and sunset. And they'll track during the day, and then they'll lay flat.
Adams County has one that's in full view of
Right there by the highway.
by the highway, yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
I went to Kansas City yesterday, and all along in Missouri, there are solar projects everywhere. There are personal ones, and then there are some bigger ones by the businesses. What's bad looking at them? I find them very interesting.
And we understand people have different points of view too, you know, in some of our
Yeah.
projects, I think the
Yeah.
Webster County one, as a part of our conditional use permit, we had to put in vegetative screening.
Right.
But what it says in Page County in our 2008 ordinances on the books is all required open areas shall be maintained in an attractive manner which is non-detrimental to the character of the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
So you're not changing what you're doing, you're not taking, I live out here in rural Page County, now it looks like I live in the center of a gigantic industrial solar farm on all sides. I
And
mean,
to that
that's a
point,
different world.
you can, I mean,
So if you put
serious.
trees around it, you're gonna probably protect it.
Call the Webster County officials. I mean, ask them how it's going. We're going through a vegetative process right now. We have screening up, we have the pollinator mix. It's starting to take finally after 2 years of operations. Takes a while to kind of get that established and snuff out all the weeds and everything.
Right.
I mean, ask them how it's going. We got a complaint call on us last year that we weren't maintaining the weeds. We had our operations team out there within a day, and they were mowing the entire site. So no, I completely understand, you know, some people aren't gonna look at them, you don't want noxious weeds growing either.
Right,
Hold us
no.
accountable, put it in an ordinance, put it in a conditional use permit or something.
Right.
We just wanna be able to maintain and operate our facility at the end of the day. We're not here to, you know, railroad over anybody. Which is why, you know, we wanna have this conversation right now, but that's not out of the ordinary to have some form of vegetative screening, within the project itself.
There's a couple comments out here. One of them is there are landowners that want this in Page County. Well, it gives you the right to tell them what they can do with their land. And another one that says, by putting these harsh restrictions on, you are placing eminent domain on the property owner. And another one, 10 foot is ridiculous. So just some interesting things.
Well, here's some interesting things to combat that, which we heard about earlier. There's all kinds of landowners say, I don't want, what about me not wanting to live 10 feet or 50 feet from 500 acres of solar panels? So the current project, I don't think has that issue. We're just trying to think down the road here
Yeah.
and make sure we've thought about all situations. And with any project, if we make a property line setback, then they gotta talk to everybody within a distance and get them on board, and then everybody's happy. So, but one property owner can't rain down on another. It
And I
works.
think that that's been accomplished in some of the counties through the notification process, when you do have to go through an application itself. A
Right.
lot of times, counties will actually require.
Which is in the
developer-
Madison County.
And I
Yeah,
think
it's-
that one's too much in the public hearing
It's
part.
in
that's
Madison
too much.
County, it's in a few others as well. I mean, the extent to which counties go.
Some
really
kind of
varies.
notification process.
But a
needs to happen.
notification, and that, what that does is in lieu of instituting a strict setback from, like, say, a property line. Because the one that I really kind of opened my eyes in the Madison County ordinance, to be transparent, was the language for half-mile setback from occupied residences from property line of non-participating landowners. And obviously that caught my eyes because, first of all, it's not waived in the Madison County ordinance. And then second of all, going back to that quarter section scenario, which there's a lot of houses on quarter sections. I mean, you're looking at over 1,300 foot by 1,300 foot, they'd be setting back. So that's a 1.2 mile area around that single parcel that you can't have any project boundary, you can't have anything put in there. So point being, it just seems a little excessive for that one specific setback. But I think what the notification process does is it mandates that developers or owners of the projects notify any of those landowners, if they haven't already done it on the front end, like we have with some of our neighbors already. And it brings them in, it gives them a notification, brings them into a board of adjustment meeting or supervisor's meeting or something like that. They get to share their concerns, their complaints, and that can get wrapped into a conditional use permit.
Right.
So if you do a view shed analysis of it and you say, yeah, I'm looking at a cornfield right now, it's gonna be a solar array, Board of Adjustment looks at that and they say, yeah, that's probably not great, we will write as a condition in your permit that you have to put up vegetative screening, you gotta maintain it for the life of the project, so they don't have to look at this from their kitchen window.
You see, so that's what's in a lot of this. So you either gotta have it where you have conditional use, or you gotta set a property line setback that can be waived, so they either agree to it or not. I mean, you gotta have a way to resolve this.
Yeah, and I would
Through the
say-
Board of Adjustment, or through you get them to join the project, basically. You'd have to
Correct,
get the
yeah.
neighbors to sign on to this. There's also a thought where if your house happened to be surrounded, and then all of a sudden, what's it worth?
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 1,000 acres of solar panels around one house, that's probably not the most desirable property anymore, so.
Correct.
And they had nothing to do with it. If it's written in a certain way, you could come pretty close to them, and they would get no say in it. Certain ordinances allow that. With very, 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 very small setbacks from a property line.
And that was one thing in the
Like
Madison
200
County.
feet,
I
I
don't
mean-
know how you would, I don't know how you, because that was one thing in here.
How you enforce it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
well, how do you, because it said something about making them whole on, and I don't know
Oh, the
how you
property
would.
value
Yeah,
guarantee.
I don't know how you
There'd
would.
have to be
I don't
an
know how you would do
appraisal.
that.
You'd have to have an
That's
appraisal.
And
for
so,
a
I mean,
real estate
I
attorney
didn't
to
cross
figure
that
out.
out, but I had a lot of questions about that. The other thing I had a lot of questions about was the, application fee based
Right.
off of, I
Way
think
too
it's
high.
megawatts or something, $1,000 per megawatt or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought that was, because what is the planned project for Page County? What was it?
With 50 megawatts.
50 megawatts?
Yep.
So then.
How many dollars is that project gonna cost?
I'd be spitballing right now.
I mean, just
I
ballpark.
mean, it's 4 years, 3 years in the future, so
Well, is it 100 million, 200 million, what is it?
really put me on the spot here.
And I'm just ballparking. You don't
No,
have to
I know,
do it.
and I'm not involved in like the financials of it, I know what our wind projects typically cost, because we built a lot of them in the past, we built a
Yeah.
very limited amount of solar projects.
It's been millions and
I
millions
wouldn't
of
even
dollars.
guess. I wouldn't even guess.
Millions and
Yeah.
millions.
I-
It's multiple millions. It has
It's
to
gonna be more than tens of millions,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that, I don't know if it'll reach hundreds of millions.
Okay, so we're talking about tens of millions, maybe not hundreds of millions. We're talking about, that would be 50,000
Yeah.
one time. So I mean, yes, I mean, that's we
huge.
need to base on what's all the fees everywhere. Look at all of them.
That's
They're gonna be
huge, huge.
10, 20,000, so.
And I won't fight
Unreasonable.
on that, I mean, that's for you guys kind of.
I haven't studied all the fees, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
But have to figure that out. So we're at a lot of things in the Madison County are good. They have a notice. Maybe our notice, we curtail that a little bit,
I
but we need
think
a
you
notice.
could, yeah, I definitely.
But we need a
curtail that.
notice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's way
and,
too
and
excessive.
like I said, it wasn't
But these
for
other
us
ones
to
don't
just
have a
copy
notice.
and paste.
They don't
No,
have a
I would
notice.
hope not.
No.
Do they
no.
have notices of the other ones? I don't think they do.
And
I
that-
know this
Yes,
isn't-
they do.
And that's why I recommended, like I said, the Madison County ordinance, for a variety of reasons, is a complete non-starter for us. There's a lot of concerns that we have with the language in these specific sections that are intended to make solar projects not be able to be developed. That's why I would recommend, if you like pieces out of the Madison County ordinance, such as the notification piece, you can always
Right.
bolt that on to something else.
Yep.
Change setbacks on another ordinance that has either been developed under or is being developed under, or that county has a project already, and bolt those pieces onto it. I mean, you can really mix and match and make this what you want, but I am concerned that the amount of redlining that would need to take place on the Madison County ordinance would take a substantial amount of time and effort, and I would be afraid that, if some of those things did linger that weren't caught, that it would be prohibitive to development. And I'm happy to talk through them with you, I'm not just trying to blow smoke up here, if you guys have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If I don't have the answers, I'll go back to the operations team, to our development team, and I'll get you answers.
Yeah, I appreciated you answering everything that I've sent you so far,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, if you have more questions, let me know,
Yeah.
that's what we're here for.
Well, and I think for me anyway, I'm learning as I go, because I've not had a lot of exposure to the solar. And so understanding the differences between wind and solar and because they're quite a bit different in regards to, I've watched a few videos of how they're built, the solar, it's pretty interesting. And I think that's why I was asking if the lines were gonna be above ground or below.
Yep, we've done it both ways.
And so is that also, that's nothing would be a hindrance to a project, would it?
I mean, if you're talking mandating how deep it needs, up to 10
Like
feet.
if you mandated that they had to be run above ground?
No, I don't think that'd be a hindrance
If that
to the
was something
project.
that-
You know,
okay.
we would like the flexibility depending what our BOP contractor's comfortable with, what the cost for the project looks like, what the topography looks like out there, trenching costs, all that kind of stuff. We take it into consideration when we're making these contract negotiations for these projects. So we would appreciate the ability to run them above or below ground,
Yeah.
but we've done it both ways.
Do you know what the average acreage is of the average solar farm? Does it usually run 300 to 500 acres? Or
Well,
they mostly bigger? Is that too
Yeah, if
small?
you're-
Like,
Wasn't
you're
Mills
talking-
County looking at one for 500 acres?
if you're talking in the state of Iowa, there's not a lot of large solar farms right now. I know that there's our project in Webster, there's the Wapello project.
and what was the Webster one? How big?
It was 100 megawatts, it's about a little under, right around 800 acres total, that's encumbered.
So this would be one of the biggest ones in Iowa.
Nah.
The 800 acres
I'm
is.
trying to rack my brain around everything that's between 50 and 100.
But I mean, I'm saying, what you're looking at building north of town here,
It's 300 acres.
Yeah,
with
this
the
one,
option to go to what?
421
it's like
acres.
420 something odd acres
Oh,
is what
okay.
the land would be. I mean, that wouldn't be
Right, all.
fence
all-
to fence, covered in panels.
Right.
There's gonna be roads, there's gonna be gaps, there's gonna be setbacks from the fences and the right of ways and everything too. But that would be the amount of land that would be encumbered, yes, and that's the same situation for Webster County, it's not 800 acres that's flat blanketed with solar panels.
Right. Well,
So that's just my recommendation, you know, you guys can chew on it, and like I said, feel free to ask any other questions, and I really do encourage you to reach out as well to any of the counties that we have solar projects in to get their take on how the construction process went, things that they wish they would have done differently, things they thought went well, you know, get their feedback when you're drafting this, because I will say, you know, we have a lot of relations with a lot of counties out there, and we try to go above and beyond to ensure that everything is taken care of. And I understand you're trying to plan for the projects down the road, but taking their input into this decision-making process, I think would be valuable.
okay, so if there's no noise, then what, I mean, we're gonna do the same anyway, because noise is noise, whether it's made by whatever it's made by, if it's industrial, whether it be wind or solar or something else. So our noise should be the same.
It's like somebody said, the dryers are a much higher noise level than anything.
What we
We
have,
listened to the one here in town.
what we have in Page County is things that are agricultural are exempt because that's been the way it's been forever.
Right,
This is
but,
different, and that's
but-
why we have a Board of Adjustment, because those are things that are outside of agriculture.
but you're looking at agriculture and you're saying agriculture can do this, but the things that are gonna power the nation can't.
That's not natural to the rural, that's why we have districts, that's why you have to have industrial districts, that's why all that was put in place long before I was here, or possibly born. So these things have been done to protect that, and a bin fan does not run every day, 365 days a year. I have maybe a few days a year, so it's, but again, things that are of agriculture are not zoned in Page County, it's totally out of zoning. There is no effect on that, they don't have to come in and do a Board of Adjustment, because it's natural to the county. Okay, any other things on this?
No, I think I've made quite a few notes here, so.
Yeah, I've got a bunch here too, so.
I am kind of interested, wouldn't mind taking a tour of
Yeah.
one, because you did offer that.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
sometime,
we
Where's the
offer it
closest one?
the
the
Stewart,
Arbor Hill,
the,
Stewart,
up at towards
yeah.
Stewart.
Oh, okay.
If you want the full scope, you can go up to Webster.
Oh.
It's a bigger project, it's a newer project.
Yeah.
The one over in Stewart is a part of our Arbor Hill Wind Farm as well.
How big is that one?
It's 25 megawatts,
25 megawatts.
yeah, or 24 megawatts.
Okay.
All right.
And the one in Webster's 100.
Correct,
Be the same thing, scaled up, this bigger.
correct.
So we
Yeah.
could see
I mean,
one.
it's slightly different panel technology, the one in,
How tall are they? You know,
I'll have to get back to you on that, like at full tilt.
yeah, I mean, you can just figure it out and let us know.
Yeah,
It's all
I know
right.
I'd have to get back to you on that for Webster, because Webster's definitely our newest one, it's our largest one. And like I said, it has more of kind of the next-gen technology within it, it's still PV cells, but it has both front and back PVs, so it catches reflection off the vegetation below to kind of enhance the performance
Yeah.
of the project overall, so. It is interesting to see, but yeah, if you guys want to or something like that, let me know, I'm more than happy to set that up.
Okay, that'd be a good idea to go look at them, see what we're dealing with. So anything else on this? I think taking a tour is a good idea.
You did ask about, like, there's like news articles you're reading or something, or maybe some constituents that are talking about like toxic chemicals.
Yeah, so the type of panels that were, so there was some talk of a hailstorm that went through down in Texas somewhere, and it destroyed a bunch of solar panels, and they leaked into the ground and caused a lot of contaminating to the ground. I was just wondering, I think I asked you what the ingredients were in the panels.
Yeah, so all of our.
What's the risk, I guess, if
Right.
something breaks?
So I do have some literature here that I printed out. I apologize, I only have one copy, but you guys can copy it and circulate it amongst yourselves, or I can just email it to you.
You can email it to us.
Either way. But what they're talking about is thin film solar technology. So the traditional solar panels are mostly made up of like polycrystalline silicone. Those are all the projects that we have in operations to date. A lot of the more newer technologies out there utilize what's called a thin film. Those contain some chemicals, most notably it has cadmium telluride in it, which I see, when I started researching this a lot and talking to our operations team, that's what commonly pops up in the news articles out there. The research articles do a really good job kind of running through it, and I apologize if it's a little dry. I'm a chemical engineer by education, so it was pretty interesting for me to kind of read through all of it, but I'll send it over to you, let me know. I mean, it basically, it's just kind of runs through, the quantities, the size, the water solubility, the toxicity levels to humans, the different parameters in which they're working, how these different tests were run over time, and how they've gotten the results. I mean, the summation of it was that, in worst case scenarios, even using volatile organic solvents to break down the polycrystalline or the cadmium telluride, the thin film photovoltaic panels, even when doing that, had very minimal increases in that compound, but those are outside of the normal operating conditions of a project. You're not going to be pouring volatile organic solvents over top of crushed up solar panels when it's operating normally in a field or anything like that. Yes, you might have a crack, it might be exposed to rainwater, but tempered glass that's on these things will mostly contain anything. It's not going to have any sort of leaching effects, and even if it did get in, the water got in, the water solubility of these compounds is very different than the constituents that they're made of, and make a really good reference, to looking at the constituents of water being hydrogen and oxygen is a completely different compound than water itself.
Okay.
So that has to be taken into consideration when you're looking at something like cadmium telluride versus individual constituents of cadmium and telluride.
Keeping them separate.
Correct. I mean, because when you put them together, they're gonna have a covalent bond or electrical bond.
Yeah.
And, they both have the specific electrons to the point where, much like water, they're attracted to each other, and it's very hard to break that. At the end of the day, you're gonna have either extremely high heats or some sort of volatile solvent in order to accomplish that, some sort of acid, basically, at the end of the day, to get those two things to separate. That might have been a little too far in the weeds, I apologize. In the art, like I said, the articles.
And I think the other thing was just water usage. You're not using water.
No, there's no water usage.
No water
You
usage.
might be confusing it with concentrated solar systems. So if you look up Ivanpah, which is down in Nevada, they utilize basically a sea of mirrors that concentrate sunlight into a central tower. That central tower has basically a heat exchanger in it that has low purity water or low impurity water that runs through it. It runs a steam turbine, same way any power plant's gonna run. But it basically just takes that solar through mirrors, reflects it back to a central tower, and runs a heat exchanger off of it. So that type of project, yes, would use water for cooling, water to run steam turbine and all that kind of stuff. But when you're looking at PVs, those do not require any water.
Okay. And are the panels made in China? Or do they all come from China pretty much?
So there's been a large concern with that. I know that the US put in regulations and tariffs, I think in 2020, 2021, because there's a lot of concerns with parts coming from China and Southeast Asia and all those kinds of things. They do control, I think it's 70 to 80% of the solar market. We do procure a lot of our panels through US companies, and we go through a certification process with them to ensure that they are manufactured outside of China. I can get you more information on that if you want. I mean,
So I was just curious.
they control a very large stake, and that's something that, we've heard a lot of constituent concerns on because of the moral obligations to that and how they're manufactured and using forced labor and all that kind of stuff.
Are these mostly subsidized, the solar?
Yeah, I mean, so you'll get a
It's-
subsidization off of production tax credits. That's how we operate our wind projects and our solar projects. You'll get basically a kicker on every megawatt that you produce coming out of that project. So if it's not producing, you're not getting money, but if it is producing, you are getting money. So it's incentive for us to keep the project maintained and operating and everything like that. There's also things called investment tax credits. It's mostly geared toward like your smaller commercial residential installations, where if you install a solar project, the government will kick back 30% of that cost to you to make it less cost prohibitive. We eat the full cost, we have the capital to do that, we go with the production tax credits over the 30-year life of the project. As part of our business model, helps us keep our ratepayers' rates low. We haven't increased rates since 2013, so it's been fairly good for our customers, very good for the states, helps economic development too.
They do pay some of that they're paying the taxes to pay the credits.
Yeah, I mean,
The utilities pay a lot of taxes.
it's through federal government taxes,
I'm
yeah,
saying
so.
it's the money's a circle. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from, any business's point of view, you're gonna try to maximize the tax credits and tax breaks
Right,
that
I
you get,
understand.
whether it's personal or
But
corporate or
the
anything like
savings
that.
on your electric bill, you might be paying out in taxes to get, it's the circle for they're incentivizing you. So, I mean,
Sure.
this is just conversation, we're just talking.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But it goes in the circle.
But as a ratepayer in Iowa, would you rather have, 100 million workers within the US throwing in money to subsidies on that, or would you rather have 500,000 ratepayers that are, having to increase their rates to keep up with rising costs or energy production or anything like that?
Depends on where they incentivize, if they want to incentivize, free market can take over with no incentives, with free market run, and if they wouldn't do this, then how wise is some of this? I mean, this is just conversation, it
Yeah, I
doesn't really
mean,
matter. what we're
correct,
talking
and
about.
I'm not a politician, I don't write the
It's just,
laws.
you don't.
We take advantage of it for our customers,
I
because it's good for
understand.
them, it's good for
All
the
of the
state.
utilities in each county, all of the utility lines pay through the nose to the counties. So
And
we
then-
take in lots of taxes
And
from
energy
the
delivery.
utilities,
And
all
and
different
what
kinds.
what they pay in taxes goes into their cost, which is charged to the people getting
I'm just
electricity.
saying, we
So
get,
the money
we
comes-
get money, so.
That money comes from the taxpayer, so it comes right around, because that's what. it's a
Sure, I mean,
business.
yeah, and
But
like I
that
said,
has nothing to do with the solar
It
ordinance.
doesn't, that's what, this
So, yes.
conversation, we can move on, so.
Yes.
like I said,
Okay.
whether it's a personal business or a corporation, it'd be foolish not to take advantage of tax credits that are offered to you.
Understand what's in place at the time, you didn't make the law, so.
Thanks, Will, we appreciate you coming.
Yep, and then
Yes. Yes,
I will
thank you.
email this over to you, like I said, I
Yep.
apologize that I
No,
didn't
that-
Yeah,
have.
just send it to all of us and we can,
Okay,
thank
that
you.
works, and if you, like I said, tour, questions, let me know, I'll work with our teams to get those kinds of things set up, but I do appreciate the conversation and the
Yep,
time.
and I appreciate you getting back to any questions that we have.
Yeah, of course,
So-
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
next up, we have number 9, board communications, do we have any scheduling or anything we need to do?
I went to the Essex, to Essex, to the Home Base Iowa presentation. That was very nice, last Friday. And I also attended a meeting at the Clarinda Library for dementia-friendly, they're trying to come up with some ideas to help people that have dementia, families, caregivers, different things. A lot of resources that could be maybe developed to help those that deal with dementia and deal with people having dementia, and, as I say, caregivers and everybody. So that was a very, very interesting thing. So that's something they're trying to get started.
Interesting.
Anything else, I think our scheduling, anything we need to think about?
Tomorrow, we have
Yeah,
our
come in tomorrow afternoon.
meeting
At
tomorrow.
1:30?
Yes. Yeah, I do not have anything.
Okay,
There is We did, Jill did send out a email to us
Right,
about the carbon solutions pipeline, plume training thing, which I will, if they have it in the evening, I'll probably go, but it depends on when they're gonna have it. So that might be happening next week.
as a fire department member, you don't have to go?
Uh-huh.
As a fire department member, you don't have to
I
go?
probably do anyway, yeah, if they have, I mean, if it's during the day next week, I won't be able to, but if it's in the evening, I can sure go, and that's what I kind of told her it would be interesting to go to. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, do we have any claims? I didn't see any, do we have any claims? Okay, no claims. That done, we got minutes from the 4th. Looking at only one page of those that I,
Yeah, there was like,
only one page I did amendments to here. You see that? You flip through it. So on that page, the last page where we sign at the bottom before the claims, the page that we're amending. So I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes from April 4th to meet the Iowa Public Information Board guidelines that I passed out here.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. We can vote on that, ready?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Okay, got the minutes done. Now we can adjourn. Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Awesome move.
So moved. Oh, second.
Judy made the motion, Todd second. All those in favor,
You
aye.
need this back.
Adjourn. We're adjourned, thanks for coming.